ISDA has been working on an initiative since 2016 at the request of the Financial Stability Board's Official Sector Steering Group to develop new fallbacks for derivatives that reference certain key interbank offered rates. The reason is simple: to ensure the replacement fallback rates are robust enough to avoid severe market disruption in the event an IBOR ceases to exist. ISDA will shortly publish revisions to the 2006 ISDA Definitions to incorporate the new fallback rates for derivatives. To summarise the changes and explain why they're necessary, I'm joined by Anne Battle, Assistant General Counsel and Head of Benchmark Reform at ISDA. So Anne, to start us off, could you perhaps summarise why changes to existing fallback rates are necessary?
Sure, and thanks, Nick. So the fallbacks that currently apply in the 2006 ISDA definitions, which are referenced widely in cleared and non-cleared derivatives, require the calculation agent, which is one of the counterparties, to obtain quotes from major dealers in the relevant interdealer market if the rate is not available for any reason. So this was primarily meant to address a temporary situation, and it's worked relatively well for that purpose. So this mechanism has been used when a rate isn't available, for example, for a day or so because of a technical glitch. But if an IBOR has been permanently discontinued, it's very unlikely that major dealers would be willing or able to provide these quotes. And it's even more unlikely that they would do so each time a rate is needed throughout the remaining term of the transaction. So with respect to LIBOR in particular, the UK FCA, or Financial Conduct Authority, has stated that it will not compel or persuade panel banks to make LIBOR submissions after the end of 2021. Which significantly raises the likelihood that LIBOR will cease to exist after that date. LIBOR is based and calculated based on the submissions from the panel banks. And so if the panel banks are not submitting, then it would be impossible to produce a rate going forward. Without a change to the fallbacks that I described in the existing 2006 ISDA definitions, there won't be any clarity, certainty, or consistency with respect to the rates that contracts are to reference if and when LIBOR or another key IBOR is permanently discontinued. And as Nick mentioned, that could lead to significant market disruption for any market participants who continue to have exposure to that rate as of the cessation.
So could you run over some of the changes that are being made to the fallback methodology?
Sure. So the fallbacks will be based on the alternative risk-free rates that have been identified by the public-private sector working groups in various jurisdictions. So this includes the ARC in the United States, the Sterling Risk-Free Rate Working Group in the UK, etc. And these rates are SOFR for US dollar, SONIA for sterling, Euro SDR for euro, and similar rates that have been identified for the other relevant currencies. It makes sense to use these rates as fallbacks because of the ongoing work of the risk-free rate working groups to increase liquidity in transactions that reference them and stand them up as suitable replacements for the relevant IBORs. However, as has been widely publicized and discussed, there are some key structural differences between the IBORs and the risk-free rates. So for example, IBORs are available in multiple tenors, such as 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whereas risk-free rates are overnight rates. Additionally, the IBORs incorporate a bank credit risk premium and other factors that risk-free rates or nearly risk-free rates do not. So if counterparties enter into a transaction, for example, in the OIS derivatives market based on these risk-free rates, they would price the transaction based on the characteristics of the risk-free rate, and adjustments would not be required. However, in the case of fallbacks, we're talking about contracts that the counterparties negotiated to reference the IBOR. Therefore, the risk-free rate fallbacks have to be adjusted to ensure that the contracts originally negotiated to reference an IBOR continue to meet the counterparty's intentions to the maximum extent possible. So ISDA ran a number of market-wide consultations over the past few years to determine a methodology for these adjustments. The resulting adjustments will be published by Bloomberg, and Bloomberg will then also apply these adjustments to the risk-free rates to publish an all-in fallback rate. And all of this information will be available on a screen, just like LIBOR and the other IBORs are available on a screen today. That will enable counterparties who are used to looking at a screen to determine what LIBOR is for a particular date to look up the fallback rates in a similar manner. So ISDA is also updating its documentation, and pursuant to these updates, the risk-free rate in the relevant currency will apply as a fallback to the relevant IBOR in that documentation. And the application or the conversion of the rate in the contract will apply for all IBORs upon a permanent cessation of the IBOR. And then for LIBOR in the 5 currencies in which it is published, the fallback rates will actually apply upon the earlier of a permanent cessation or a determination by the UK FCA that LIBOR in the relevant currency is no longer representative of an underlying market.
Okay, so we've heard a little bit about what the changes are, but how do market participants go about implementing those changes?
So ISDA will shortly release what we call a supplement to amend the 2006 ISDA definitions. Once that supplement takes effect, the amendments and therefore the new fallbacks will automatically apply to cleared and non-cleared derivatives that incorporate the 2006 ISDA definitions and are executed on or after the date that the supplement comes into effect. So that's a very efficient manner for the derivatives market to ensure that it has more robust fallbacks, at least on a going forward basis. But what about all of the legacy transactions? So when it launches the supplement, ISDA will also release a protocol that will enable market participants to agree on a multilateral basis with all of their counterparties who also adhere to the protocol to incorporate the revisions made by the supplement and therefore the new fallbacks into their legacy non-cleared derivatives. Counterparties who don't adhere to the protocol could also agree to those changes via bilateral amendment. It's a bit more efficient in the cleared derivative space because major clearing houses have indicated that they will use powers existing in their rulebooks to implement the fallbacks and all of their legacy cleared transactions as of the effective date of the update. So the expectation is that the fallbacks will apply universally to entire cleared portfolios as of the date that the supplement to the 2006 ISDA definitions takes effect. Finally, while it will be really critical for market participants to ensure that they have these more robust fallbacks as soon as possible, incorporation of the fallbacks won't be the final step. Fallbacks have been referred to as a safety net or a seatbelt that market participants need to address the risk they have to a cessation of a key IBOR. However, in the analogy, even if you have your seatbelt on, it's important not to drive your car into a wall or off a cliff. And in this case, that means looking at your portfolios, and in particular, your transactions that continue to reference LIBOR, and considering whether you could close them out or otherwise amend them in a way that's tailored to your portfolio before fallbacks are triggered.
Thanks a lot, Anne. ISDA currently expects to publish the revisions to the 2006 ISDA definitions plus a protocol in July 2020 with implementation before the end of the year. The ISDA website has much more detail, so please visit www.isda.org for more information.